So you have a bracket for this term. So adolescent term with its title word, it's enclosed into brackets. Teen with the title term, it's enclosed into brackets. Goes into PubMed, the whole search strategy as is. So this is one of the ways. And another important way, another important thing that we had discussed yesterday was about searching of keywords. So there are several ways of doing it. For instance, this is the one that I have searched as. It is a preliminary. Let's take it as a preliminary strategy. And once we have these results, you can now see the breadth of the research papers that have been published on it. So you get an idea, that what kind of, you read 5 or 6 papers from here and you get an idea that what kind of keywords have been used in the literature so far. So this is one way of extracting the keywords that you can use to augment your own search strategy. Another way is to go to the legacy PubMed website. So what happened was that recently PubMed, NCBI, they launched a new PubMed website, which is this one. But once you go to the legacy website, you can just, it gives you access to a lot of other databases as well. And one of them is this mesh database that we were talking about yesterday. So for instance, you search in Depress here. So this mesh databases is a platform where the NCBI, they have employed a lot of indexers that once research is published on a particular topic, they would just add it under the heading of that particular topic. For example, if someone publishes a paper on depression, they would index it under the term depression. So if we search Depress using this website, so it has no PubMed in it, ncbi.nlm.nih.gov, you would get this. So you see here using that depression-related terms are several. These are the indexing headings: depression, depressive disorder, treatment-resistant depressive disorder, long-term synaptic depression. So this depressive disorder, treatment-resistant, this heading would only include treatment-resistant depressive disorder papers, and it was introduced in 2012. Depression postpartum, this indexing term was introduced in 1996. If you click on this, you're only going to get access to the papers that were published under this heading of postpartum depression. So we'll see here that under this mesh, you get a lot of subheadings: analysis, anatomy, blood, CS, cerebrospinal fluid, etiology, genetics. And you also get the entry terms. So from here you can see what kind of entry terms that you have to use. So you have postnatal depression, postpartum depression, postpartum depression, postnatal, post-natal depression, postnatal without a hyphen, post-space natal depression. So these are the kind of terms that authors use, or these are the kind of entry terms that PubMed allows, or PubMed has used for indexing these research papers. So if you were interested in the use of therapy in depression postpartum, you just click here, add to search builder, search PubMed. So you would see here that most of the papers are related to the therapies. So we did not really mention that if this therapy is psychological or pharmacological. So you see omega-3 fatty acid supplementation, effectiveness of opioid-delivered psychosocial intervention, non-pharmacological interventions. So from here you can use, a number of articles for your reference. So you would know that these papers are related to therapy, and you can look at find the papers that are relevant to your research question here, and then extract the keywords from here. So for example, if I was researching on psychosocial therapies, psychological therapies for maternal depression or postnatal depression, so I would see here that the important keywords that I can see: peer delivered, psychosocial. So these are the keywords that I would include in my search strategy, and you can keep a track of these and note these in your Excel file or Word file. Mindfulness. So these are one of the ways. Another way would be to look for keywords would be to find relevant systematic reviews that have been published previously. You can go into the Cochrane database and look at the Cochrane reviews or any other systematic reviews that have been published. So for example, PubMed also allows you to look for systematic reviews specifically. So if you click on here, systematic review, it should only give you results related to systematic reviews that have been published on depression, postpartum depression, under its therapy heading. So you can look for similar systematic reviews that are similar to your research question. Click them and look at their search strategies. So this is one of the ways to find out relevant literature as well. Another way would be to use the Yale Mesh Analyzer. So this is what I was talking about yesterday as well. So to find out keywords, important keywords, what you can do here is you can just go to this website, Yale Mesh Analyzer. You can just Google it, or use its web address, mesh.med.yale.edu. Just keep this as is. And what it requires you to do is that you type in 20 PubMed IDs that are relevant to your research article. So if you go back to this Web of Science, I can see that effectiveness and acceptability of cognitive behavioral therapy. This is one of the for maternal peripartum depression. So this seems relevant to my research, my systematic review. I would just copy paste this PubMed ID, go back there. The efficacy of online CBT for postpartum depressive symptomatology. So you can just copy paste up to 20 of these PubMed IDs and paste them here in Yale Mesh Analyzer. When you click on Go, so it would bring about very good information. What it does is it divides every article based on its PubMed ID into separate columns. Then it gives you the mesh headings. So this article was under cognitive behavioral therapy. These are the keywords. And then the author keywords: perinatology, psychiatry, depression, and mood disorders. So I can see that I can use this keyword as well. Just use them into a quotation mark, or use them as depression or mood disorders. Online cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is an important keyword that I can use. Computer assisted therapy. This is a keyword that I can use, and it is also a mesh heading. Postpartum depression. So these are one of the ways to that PubMed can help you out in finding out more keywords. Do we have any questions so far? So I can address them and go back to the PubMed.
Do you suggest for us to use these tools for all the search strategies, or when should we use this? Is it necessary?
Yeah, you should use these tools. So I just mentioned these tools, once you're developing your search strategy and you have a preliminary search strategy and you want to improve it further, right? So you can use all these tools to come up with the more keywords that can help you out in in finding out relevant keywords for your search terms.
And while writing the systematic review article, for example,
Yeah.
do you suggest for us to explicitly mention that we use these tools in order to get our search terms. Do you suggest to mention it in the article?
No, I don't think so that you have to mention them, but it's always a good practice to make it more reproducible. So, for instance, if you would, if I would be, if I talk about development of search strategy in my systematic review, what I would do is that we developed a search strategy uh, after adapting or after improving the search strategy used in previous systematic reviews, give their references, and Yale Mesh Analyzer. I haven't seen any paper mentioning Yale Mesh Analyzer, but you should always mention the key systematic reviews that helped you in developing the search strategy. So because that not only makes it more reproducible, but that also adds credibility to your own search strategy, that your search strategy has previously been published, that you have adapted now, that you have previously published, has been peer reviewed, right? So if you give those references in your methods, that would add more credibility to your search strategy. Do we have any other questions?
On my side, thank you.
Okay. And do we have any questions regarding this PubMed searching? Are we clear about using these fields, using the keywords individually? And I would recommend that, once you're
Hemant, I had a
experienced enough,
question.
then move on. Yes, yes.
It seems to me that by having the default of all fields, that seems to be the best strategy. You're going to get a lot more articles than if you were to try to limit it. Is it the reason that we try to limit it is because we don't want as many? And so as a preliminary search strategy, shouldn't we just limit it to all fields?
For preliminary, yes, you should do that. You can limit it to all fields. But, what I recommend is here is that, it depends on your own intuition as well. So for instance, if you are researching on, let's say, cognitive behavioral therapy related interventions for depression, you can assume that that all the papers that publish their trials on cognitive behavioral therapy for depression, they would mention their intervention type, cognitive behavioral therapy, in their title and abstract. And they would also mention the population or the outcome. For example, they would mention that maternal depression for postnatal depression in their title. So you can assume it, and you can just limit it to titles and abstracts. Because if you use all fields, or if you use text word, then it is going to bring about a lot of irrelevant articles, which I do not recommend. We can just do a test run here, cognitive behavioral therapy. So if you just do all fields, you get around 30,063 research results. And let us just look at it once. So it gives you cognitive behavioral exposure therapy. This is in the title. Evaluation of the effects of an intervention. So the conclusion of the abstract has the word cognitive behavioral therapy. The title has it here. The background in the abstract has it here. So this paper has mindfulness-based intervention in its title, and cognitive behavioral therapy somewhere in its text. If correctly diagnosed, cognitive behavioral therapy is currently the treatment of choice for mental illnesses. So this is somewhere in the text, in the discussion, and it does not really look relevant to me. So you will get a lot of irrelevant papers that you have to sift through. To limit it to the title, then you would get 3,245 articles. So that is a lot less number of articles that you have to sift through. But if you want to be extra cautious, you can always use title and abstract. And this would give you around 9,941 studies. So I think this title and abstract keyword is a much better strategy than using all fields. But if you are looking for certain secondary outcomes along with anxiety and depression. So for instance, we know that most of the studies on cognitive behavioral therapy mention their primary outcome as depression and anxiety. So we can limit it to titles and abstracts. But once you're working on secondary outcomes like treatment adherence, treatment satisfaction, we know that in most of the interventions, or we can assume that in most of the interventions, it is not taken as published randomized controlled trials, it is not taken as a primary outcome. It would be a secondary outcome that might be mentioned in the abstract, or the chances are that it would be mentioned in the full text. So I would just recommend that adding in the secondary outcomes in the full text, in the text word field, not the all field, not this all fields. Use the text word. So let's just run another search strategy here. So I would do cognitive behavioral therapy in title and abstract, in title and abstract, cognitive, it has to be added with or. Behavioral with or, CBT with or. So you have this, and then you can type in your outcomes, depression, anxiety. So I assume these are primary outcomes for most of the randomized controlled trial papers that have been published, and they should be mentioned in the titles or abstracts. But once I go through the literature, I find out that treatment adherence or treatment satisfaction is mentioned in the results of the full manuscript, but not in the titles or abstracts. So I just use the word text word. Text word or. And then you can just search it. And you come about 245,289 results. Now you can try to limit, you know that you cannot really search these many results. So you can just try to limit it to the titles to limit the number of articles. And that would bring about the results to much lower number. Like we have 9,941, 3,245 here. So do we have any questions for the PubMed up till now? So I would be closing the PubMed now, and we can move on to the next database. Web of Science. Now, Web of Science can be accessed only through a paid subscription, such as the Liverpool Library. Now, an important thing here that I would like to show you is that once you go to the Web of Science, they offer you two different types of databases, all databases and Web of Science core collection. So I always recommend that search all of the databases, and it has a certain advantage. Using this all databases, you can actually you can try to actually bypass PubMed search as well. Once you go to this advanced search, so it gives you two options: basic search and advanced search. Advanced search is much better. And you would note here that it has the same Boolean operators as the PubMed and or not, and it has some more same and near. We seldom use the same and near. We mostly use this and or not. And then it has the field tags. Like in the PubMed, we had text word, title, abstract. So what you have here is TS equals topic, TI equals title, AB equals abstract, AK equals keywords, KP keyword plus. So these are the AK's author keywords, the keywords that the authors supply when they are publishing their research papers. If you use a field tags topic, what the topic does is it actually searches your keywords in the title, in the abstract, in the author keywords of the research papers that have been published. So TS here is the most broad type of field tag. So let us just run our search strategy here once. And I will also show you why Web of Science is a very good tool to use in your systematic reviews. So what I'm doing here is I just copy pasted adolescent, teen, youth, youngster, population specific keywords, and use the field tag title, TI equals, and then without spaces you have this. So you get around 19,020 research studies here. Let us just run a simple search. TI equals depress issues. And so these are the outcomes. So what I'll do now is I will combine the set number 2 and set number 3 using the AND operator. Just tick mark the keyword set that you're going to use. Combine sets using AND. Combine. So you get around 14,010 studies. Click on this. Now this is just a preliminary research strategy that we are using to practice. So you get 14,010 studies here, but the good thing about it is, if you look at the databases that it searches through Web of Science core collection. It also searches through Medline, which is a subset of PubMed, meaning that most of the high quality journals from PubMed are indexed in Medline. Medline is narrower than PubMed because it has a higher set of criteria that journals have to fulfill to get indexed in. While PubMed is more broad, and it also includes articles from PubMed Central and PubMed itself. And they do not really have very strong criteria, as strong as Medline, for the journals to join the club. So Medline is a bit better in terms of quality than PubMed.
I had a question. Are these numbers limited to exclusively so that the Medline 8504 is not included in the Web of Science core collection or in the others? Or are these also? Okay, so these are the ones that, so there were 11,715 articles which were in Web of Science core collection, which were not in Medline, correct?
Yes, that is correct. But the final number that you get is that Web of Science would add in all of these numbers, and it would delete the duplicates, remove the duplicates, and give you the final number. So there would be no overlapping articles, just the unique articles in all of these databases. So you have, we had around 14,000 results. We got results from Web of Science core collection. We got results from Medline. We have from Korean journal database. We have it from so Korean journal database is based on indexes journals that are published in Korea. Then we also get Silo Citation Index. Now this Silo Citation Index is pertains to journals that are journals that are published mainly in Latin America, also in South America, and you get access to English language articles published in that region. You also get access to Portuguese and Spanish language articles using this. Then you also have this Russian Science Citation Index. So a lot of Russian journals are indexed in this citation index. So just by using one database, you actually searched in 1, 2, 3, 4, around 11 databases, and 3 of these are really important. 4 of these are really important ones. Web of Science Core Collection is a major indexer. Medline is a major database. Silo Citation Index is a major database, and Korean Journal Database is also a small database, but has an important regional importance in Korea.
Ahmed, I'm still a little confused because as I count up, there should be more like 30,000 here, and you said you ended up with 15,000. So these are not mutually exclusive then. There were overlaps, and then they got rid of the overlaps and ended up with 14,000. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct. Yes. So it will only include the unique articles in the final count.
In the final
overlapping similar count, similar articles would be.
Okay. All right. But this tabulation shows you things that have overlapped.
Yeah.
Like 11,000 and 8,000 include overlaps.
Yes. Yes. If we go back to the search, so we had done this search, right? So these were our search results. Now, the only drawback of using this Web of Science database is that as university users, you can only download 500 research studies at a time. So for these 14,000 results, you have to download it turn by turn. First, you download 1 to 500, then you download from 501 to 10,000, 501 to 1,000, then 1,000, 1 to 1,500, and so on. Let me just show it to you how to do it. So you get a lot of exporting options for exporting these results. So you can always download it in the form of EndNote desktop, and this format is easily readable by EndNote. It is easily readable by Mendeley and major softwares. You can also try downloading it software format. So that is text, plain text, or tab limited in Excel format. So I'm just downloading it in the form of EndNote desktop software, which is readable by all of the important platforms like EndNote, Mendeley, and Rayon software that we are going to use later on. And download author, title, source, and abstract, and export. And just make up a unique folder for it. So this is how you save the results from here. So do we have any questions about Web of Science up till now?
If we use Web of Science, there is no need for us to go to Medline individually, right? So that will work for Medline as well.
So yes. But PubMed is more inclusive. It has access to more journals. So it's entirely up to you if you would not like to use PubMed. What we mostly do is, once we run our prelim research strategy, and if one of the databases is giving us ridiculously high number, we just forego it. And, if we are searching 10 databases and the rest of the databases are giving us results in thousands, and one of the databases giving us ridiculously high numbers, then we just, we don't really include it in our search. But you have to do that before before submitting your protocol. You have to do all that process a priori. Once you have registered your protocol on Prospero, you cannot make changes to the databases that you're going to search. So if you have mentioned PubMed, you have to search PubMed in the protocol. So another way is, let me just take you through. For instance, what if you would like to search a particular keyword in titles as well as abstract? So what you will do here is just type in title, and let's say I wanted to search the term depressive in title as well as abstract. So I would first have to search the depressive term in the title. Then I search it in abstract. And then you click on these and combine the set using OR, like this. So the results you get from using title only is 56,000, plus when you search it through abstract, you get to 20,000. And when you combine these two, you get to 35,000. This excludes the overlapping results and only includes the unique ones. Sorry. So any questions up till now? So I'll just close the Web of Science now and take you through the Cochrane. Another important thing is that a search strategy that you use for PubMed does not necessarily have to be used in a similar manner in other databases. So, for example, in Cochrane Library, we recommend that you use a shortened version of a shortened version of your search strategy. So PubMed allows you to add in any number of keywords, any number of domains or concepts. Same is the case with the Web of Science. But what happens in Cochrane Library is you only have the option to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only these 5. You cannot add in more rows of keywords here. So I had previously been working on workplace healthcare professionals. So I'll just use the same keywords. So I have this workplace here that I restrict to title abstract keyword. It also has the option of record, title, abstract, author, keyword, alt text. And then I combine it with depression or anxiety. Run search. So it gives you access to Cochrane reviews, gives you access to Cochrane protocols, gives you access to trials. We're looking for trials only. So you get a very high number because we used a very preliminary search strategy. You get a very high number, but the thing I wanted to show you here is that it searches PubMed for you, it searches Embase for you, it searches CINAHL for you as well. It also searches protocols or the trial registries that have been published in clinicaltrials.gov website, and similar ICTRP, which also has which is also a trial registry. So just by using Cochrane, you get access to PubMed, Embase, ICTRP, CT.gov, and CINAHL as well. And you can look at the results by selecting a particular source or database. So again, just by using Cochrane and Web of Science only, you got access to all of the major databases. So even if you search Cochrane only, and although we search in more than 10 databases for once we are doing commissioned reviews, but even for your PhD dissertation or even for your publications, systematic review publications, you can just use these two databases and mention that that through Cochrane we searched Cochrane Trial Registry, CINAHL, we searched Embase and PubMed. And by using Web of Science, we searched a number of databases, including Web of Science database, Core database, Medline, Korean Journal database, Silo Index, and the Russian citation database. So you get a lot of variety of databases just in these two. Now, exporting the results from these, it's really easy. Just click on this, export selected citations, and you can do it in RIS format or RIS reference manager. Just select either, because most of these are recognized. Both of these are recognized by most of the platforms. Include abstract, download. I'll just name it as citation export practice. And download it on the desktop. So this becomes our citation. This becomes our. So these are the results. This is how you export results from your Cochrane search, and it would allow you to export results all at once. But since we got results more than 50,000, 51,000, because we are running a very preliminary research strategy, then it would not allow you, for these many results, it would not allow you to export them. So it has a download limit of 20,000 only. So once you hit these many results, just make sure that you keep on tailoring your search strategy and use the number of results that you get. So do we have any question on the Cochrane search so far? Okay, so I'll just close it down. What I'm going to do now is open up EndNote. Do all of you have access to the EndNote? Or
No.
do all mainly? Okay, so the problem with EndNote is that it's a subscription-based software. But once you start doing your systematic reviews, you can once start doing your PhD, you can get this software from Liverpool for free. University of Liverpool software website. They give it for free, and if you are still unable to get EndNote, if you're as part of subscription, then you can always download their trial software. So they allow you to run the trial for 1 month for free, which is more than enough to do the steps that we are going to do now. So with the advent of new platforms like Ryan that we use for title and abstract screening, the role of this EndNote software has become really reduced. I only use EndNote now to delete the duplicates, right? So for example, if you're searching from 5 or 6 databases and you're importing results here, it automatically deletes the duplicates. The software Rayan, which we use for title and abstract screening, also allows you to delete duplicates, but this option there is very rudimentary. So they recommend you to use other software for duplicate deletion rather than rely on their own. So you just open up your I'll just close this one. So just open up the EndNote software, and this is the window that you're going to get. Click on New. You can name it as, let's say, Practice Enhance. Save. and it would open up this window. So this is your new library. You should know that what folder you are saving it to. Then you import file, right? And you get this window. Import file. Choose from here. You're going to choose the file that you are going to import. These are the import options. So it mentions, the type of files that you are going to import, that you can import. So for example, if you are importing from PubMed, you save the file from there and you use this option and then choose the file from here. If you are downloading from, if you are exporting results from Web of Science, then you use this ISI CE, right? And if you are importing from Cochrane or CINAHL or PsycInfo or Scopus, then you use this RIS format, RIS. So I think these three are the import options that you would need. So since we downloaded the results from the Cochrane, we're going to use this RIS format. Choose. We had it in desktop. Citation export practice. This was our, and you just keep it as discard duplicates. So it will automatically discard duplicates. So it brings about 665 references. So these were the references that we obtained from the Cochrane just by limiting it to CINAHL only. So we got 665 references and it had 5 duplicates that were automatically discarded. Now let us just work on, go on to the Web of Science. I'll just do a quick search here. So we only downloaded 500 results from here, and I'm just showing it to you for practice. File, import, file, choose. So it comes like common export format. Click on it, import option, ISICE, because Web of Science was previously named as ISI knowledge database something. It has previously it was named as ISICE, and you import it. So it imported 499 references, discarded 1 duplicate reference. So this is how you export results from your from different databases and maintain your library like this. And this becomes an important resource for you to keep. Just keep it as your reference to be used later on. What you have to do here is just note the number of results that you get per database. You can also note these. So per database numbers, you would note down once you're searching the databases. You can also see it from here. You have the number of all the references here, just note them, and the number of duplicates that have been discarded, note them as well, because all of this information is going to be fed into your Prisma flowchart once you're reporting your systematic review methods. And then click on one of the articles, one of the references here. Press Ctrl+A to choose all, and then you can just export them in the rich text in this text file format. I'm naming this as Practice Enhance, and from the output style, use this EndNote export method. EndNote export, text file, EndNote export, and save. So this way your library will be saved wherever you have saved it in the folder that you have chosen. And
Ahmed, I had a question.
Yeah, please.
I'm just not completely sure. Like when we imported from Web of Science, we got rid of the duplicates in that set. Then we imported from Cochrane and we got rid of the duplicates from that set. But when you imported them both together, don't we want to check for duplicates across Web of Science and Cochrane, or is that automatically done?
So in previous versions of this EndNote, you had to do it. Manually, right? So you just go here and you would see that you have the option of find duplicates. But in later versions, starting from this X9, they have given the option that once you can delete the duplicates from the beginning. Once you export results from a database, just mention discard duplicates like we had done previously. So it would be done automatically. You don't have to go manually to this reference and find duplicates, right?
That wasn't my question. My question was duplicates across Web of Science and PubMed.
Yeah, that would be done as well.
That would be done. So there are no duplicates between Web of Science and PubMed in the way we did it.
Yeah. So once you're exporting results, reference results from 2 or 3 databases, EndNote takes care of duplicates within a particular database and also across all the databases. So you don't really have to worry about finding duplicates again. So now that we have exported the references and maintained our library, now it's time to it's time to go through title and an abstract screening stage. And for that, previously we used software such as we used Excel sheets mainly. That was before the advent of these software such as Rayan, which allows a very collaborative approach to title and abstract screening. So what we used to do was we used to like now we have exported these results as an EndNote file. Previously, we used to do it as an Excel file. Then we would maintain an Excel file with separate columns. We had the ID, we had the title, we had the author, we had the abstract, and we used to sift through the titles and abstracts manually. You know, we just used to sift through it on the Excel sheet, and then we would manually enter. You know, if we're including the study or excluding the study, and also add in the reason. But now this process has become very automated and very easy. So this Rayan.QCRI, this Rayan QCRI software is a open source software that is available to everyone. And you can use it for free. It was created by Qatar Computing Research Institute in Qatar. And before using it, you have to sign up. So it's a very Very easy process to sign up. So I would just leave it up to you all to do the sign up yourself. Once you have signed up, just sign in this software. I have already signed up for it. And this is the window that you get. So you see here that you have my reviews. So these are the reviews that you create yourself. You have collaboration reviews. These are the reviews that others have created and they have emailed you for a collaboration. These are translation only reviews for translators only and other reviews that Rayyan themselves are given as public data sets for your practice. So the use of the software is fairly easy. Just add in a new review. I just type in a title, enhance, practice, create. So, and this is the window that would open after you have created your review. And you get these options here. Select file, fairly easy. Select files, and you import whatever EndNote file that you have. But it also a very good resource here is that it also gives you steps to import references from different platforms. So for EndNote desktop guide that we are going to use, it has given all the steps. It has given steps for Mendeley as well, which is the other software. Microsoft Excel guide if you would like to import it from Excel software, PubMed, ScienceDirect, Web of Science. So you can import them individually from these databases as well. But the only problem is that it would not cater for the duplicates and you have to delete the duplicates manually. And that is the reason we used this EndNote desktop. So let me just select the file. So this is a file that we had created from the EndNote. It has results from Cochrane as well as Web of Science. I press continue, and this is what you are going to get. So what you have here is the titles, the date they had been added. It's still populating it. It will take some time to upload all of the references. So you have 1164 unique entries. This is the same number that we had in the EndNote. Once you click on an article here, in the below window, you would get this. You would get access to its title, journal, publication type, and also wherever the abstract is included, it will also have that. So just by reading these and evaluating them against your own inclusion criteria, you can simply just include it, or just press maybe, or exclude it. And if you have excluded it, you can type in the reason. So they have already given a list of reasons: background article, foreign language, wrong drug, wrong outcome, wrong population, wrong publication type, wrong study duration, and you can also add in your own reasons or labels here as well. So for instance, you can just mention not in RCT, and you get the reason here. So this is one of the ways you can include or exclude articles here. And since this software is based on machine learning, what it does is it also gives you a lot of new tools to work with. that would automate everything. So for instance, you're only interested in the journal articles, right? Not in patents. So it has already categorized them into journals and patents. So if you are working in Excel, you would have to do everything manually. But here you can just click on the patent. So all of these are patents. So you can just exclude them quickly. You know that these are not needed for not these patents are not needed in our review. Click on journal articles. And then if you're not interested in other languages, so for example, ES, this must be in Spanish language. We don't need it. We just exclude it because it is a foreign language. Same with this PT. So if it was the same, you can just exclude it, just mentioning the reason that it's a foreign language. And then, since we are only interested in randomized control trials, right? And you get a number of keywords here, number of topics here. So for instance, it has mentioned this descriptive statistics. So maybe it would include a lot of those articles that are descriptive, that are not randomized controlled trials. And you can quickly sift through them quickly and exclude them. For instance, if you're not interested in the male population, maybe there are some articles that have only been done in the male population. Just click on it, and it would present all of those articles that mention the keyword male. But you have to sift through those manually as well. Just look at them, that you're not going to exclude relevant articles.
So Ahmed, I just want to be clear that even though this is an AI-based software, you seem to have to do this manually. And so they don't do it. I mean, once you put in the exclusion criteria, they don't do it for you. They just identify the set of articles which meet that exclusion criteria, and you have to go and do one by one. Is that correct?
Yes, I would recommend that, even if it shows that, it's, for example, it is showing this this word here, descriptive statistics. If you click on it, it would bring about all of those papers that have mentioned the word descriptive statistic in it, right? So if it had mentioned, a descriptive study on the effects of an aquatic exercise, I can just quickly exclude it. It will just help you out, but most of the work that you have to do is manual. So just, even if it recommends, exclude this paper, don't exclude it. Look at it first. But it will really help you out in a lot of cases. For example, if you're only working with adolescents here and it has a keyword adult here, so it means that this keyword is either mentioned in the abstract, or it is either mentioned in the title of the paper. So you can just quickly sift through them and exclude them in that way. But it is not a a totally automated tool, but it's much better than the use of the Excel file that is really hard to maintain and that is really hard to work with, because you have to do everything manually there. So for instance, it gives you the reasons that you have used for excluding studies. So for instance, if you just exclude this one and you write in a reason background article, so it would automatically compute what kind of reasons were given for exclusion of articles. And this is the kind of information that you're going to need while publishing your own research paper. So this one, and it can also help you to detect duplicates, but this option is still rudimentary here. And then once you have done 50 or 60 or 70, these number of articles, once you have screened them out, you can try compute ratings. So for instance, I will just exclude randomly just to reach that 50 number of articles criteria that that the software has for computing ratings based on its AI algorithms.
Just one question: the exclusion reasons are generated automatically by them, or do you have to put something in?
These are the number of reasons that are that have been generated by them by the Rayan team. So these are mostly the exclusion reasons that you use: wrong study duration, wrong study design, wrong publication type, wrong population. But if you find out
each article, you have to put in the label, right? The reason.
Yeah. So if you find out any studies that are excluded based on some reason, not included this one, you just leave RCT or yeah. So I'm just excluding it randomly. You can also click it. You can also use the keyword. You can also use the keyboard E. And then you can ask the software to compute the ratings. So these ratings will be computed based on based on your previous decisions. So it will just compare the titles that you have included and the titles that you have excluded and bring on its own rating stars. So once the rating is done, it will show you articles with a 5-star criteria. So meaning that the more the stars, the more the chances of including the article. The less the stars, the more the system thinks that it's appropriate for exclusion. It's still computing it. So while we wait for it, I'll just show you some more functionalities in this one. Since it's the main reason that we use it because it makes it easier for us to collaborate with other reviewers, right? So what it does is, if you go back to the main page here, my reviews enhanced practice, this is the review that we are working on. You click on it, the review, and it would show you that the number of undecided articles, it would show you the number of excluded articles, it would show you the number of included articles. And if you had more team members, it would have shown the same pie chart for all of those team members. And how can you invite them? Just click on this invite, type collaborator, translator, viewer. So collaborator is the person that can do everything except deleting it or inviting others or deleting research or search methods. So what they can do here is they can include and exclude articles, and they can mention the reasons. So that is all what they can do here. And then you can just invite those authors by typing in the email. Invite. So once they receive the invitation, they will receive a link, and once they click that link, they will be taken on to this review. So you would see here that my collaborator is here. He has joined. His email is here, and we also get to see that the number of articles that they have included, excluded, or that are still undecided. And there's another option here that's called blind on. So this is really important. If you set the blind on, then decision and labels of any collaborator will not be visible to the other person. So this is really important because once we are doing this title and abstract screening work, we have to make sure that we are blinded. Reviewer 1 is doing his own work and reviewer 2 is doing his own work. And once we are finished with the title and abstract screening, we then match it with each other. And if there are articles that I have included and the other reviewer has included as well, we include them. The final decision is include. If I have excluded and the other reviewer has excluded as well, final decision is exclude. But if we get into some sort of conflict, for instance, if our decisions are not the same, one of them is including, the other is excluding, then we get to see that on Rayan. Once you set the blind off, we can start seeing each other's decisions, and then we can look at the decisions that are contradictory, and we can just discuss them using Zoom or Teams by sharing the screen and by discussing about it, and then we can either reviewer 1 or either reviewer 2 changes his decision to match the others. So this is a very useful collaborative tool for to use. So by this time we have the new ratings available. So based on our previous inclusion exclusion decisions, this software has now computed the rating. So because we did it randomly, so it's not really going to be very accurate. But if you're running a proper systematic review, then we would have received quite accurate ratings from Rayan software. So this is somewhere in the middle. I think we should say it if we are going to include it or not. And then there will be stars that are 5 that are green. All of the stars are green. So those are the studies that you would most likely include. And then there would be studies that only have 1 star, 1 green star. So those are the studies that you are most likely to exclude. So it really helps us, once you see studies with 1 star, they are going to be most likely excluded. So you can quickly sift through them. You can quickly, just look at the title, include or exclude. When the studies have full 5 stars and they're more likely to be included, then you just quickly look at the title and abstract and judge it for inclusion. And if the stars are somewhere in the middle, then I think you would have to spend some time looking at if you are going to include that or not. So for instance, this has just half a star, I would most likely exclude it and give the reason by quickly looking at the title. So in this way it just this software saves us some time. So once you're done with this,
Ahmed?
Yeah.
Ahmed, why some of the articles are not rated?
Because we have included or excluded them already. That's why.
Okay.
So it would only show stars. Do we have any other question? Okay, so let's move on. Move on. So once you are done with including and excluding, and once you are done with discussion with the reviewer 2, and you have and all of you have agreed on all of the articles, the included ones, the excluded ones, as well as the and also finalized decision on the contradictory papers. Just note the number of exclusion reasons, these labels that you are going to use in your Prisma flowchart. And once you have decided on all of the articles, just click on this included ones, because these are the ones that you are now going to take into the next step, that is full text screening. Just click on the included, it would only show you the included ones, and you can export it easily. Filtered ones. CSV format. CSV format is for Excel, and you can just export it easily. So you will receive an email within minutes, including a download link to your exported articles. So I think it has the other of close. So we have already received the link from Rayan where our export is ready to download. Get it in a zip format, just extract the zip software, the compressed folder. You get these files, click on the articles file, and you get a list of the articles that you have included. So it includes the key. So as you know that we searched Medline as well using the Roscience, so we get articles from Medline as well. This is CINAHL, Medline, CINAHL. You get title, year, journal, authors, get the URL. So this was from Cochrane, gives Cochrane URL. What is the language, publisher, abstract, notes. So it gives you the, the reason. It gives you that who has included and who is excluded. So I have included it. It shows you that, Ahmed included this article. And if I had given the reason, it would given some kind of label to it. It would have the label here as well. So now at this stage, what we do is we just delete the columns that are unnecessary, and so we don't need this column. So this is the information that that I would use in the full text screening. Just make a table out of it. So once I have downloaded the full text, I just mentioned that the full text is downloaded here by putting a Y and Y meaning yes and meaning no. So I know which of the full text have been downloaded and have been maintained in my folder. And then you can just add in more columns. Include reason for exclusion. So this is a sheet that you need for including and excluding, and this is the sheet that you would need to take you to the full text screening step. So I think this is all that you can do with Rayan software. And it's a really useful tool to have. If you don't like to use Rayan software, then you would have to create 2 Excel sheets. One Excel sheet for reviewer 1, one Excel sheet for reviewer 2. Then you independently include or exclude the articles, and then one of the reviewer merges both of the sheets, the decisions, and then manually looks at them, which one of them are included, which one of them are excluded. So that was a really that required a lot of clerical manual work. So this is a really good software that automates, but still it is not going to automate everything. You have to look at the titles and abstract and see which of these are suitable for inclusion or exclusion. So do we have any questions so far?
Ahmed?
Yeah.
So you exported this file in the CSV format. Should we
Yes.
also export it in the EndNote because we have excluded too many of the articles? Should we have an other library, or we will create that library after the full screening of the text?
So I don't think you need to make another library, because your review is going to be archived on the Rayan website, and you can access it anytime you want. You can, just to look at the articles that you have excluded, just to look at the articles that you have included, to look at the reasons that we have used for exclusion. So that is all of the information that you need for excluded articles. You don't really need to export the excluded ones.
Okay, and the last question, that the reasons will also be can also be like exported to report that how many articles were excluded and what were the reasons, or we have to do it manually from Rayan software.
Yes, the reasons would be exported by automatically, but the reasons would only come, if you have added labels or reasons for included articles, or mostly the reasons are for excluded articles. That is what Prisma asks you. Why have you excluded full text, or why have you excluded titles and abstracts? Give reasons with numbers. So you can just, you have the table, a table where, the Rayan mentions that 2 of them were non-controlled trials, or 5 of them were excluded because of this reason. So you can just copy paste that and keep that information. You don't really have to maintain a separate Excel file for excluded articles. Do we have any other question? Regarding Web of Science or choice of databases?
Ahmed,
Yeah.
I have a query. It's not directly related to Rayan. And I saw 2 systematic reviews today. One was done on India, and another one was done on low and middle income countries. But one choose 9 databases, and the other one choose 3 databases for searching articles. So, like, how do you decide like how many you should do, and like if there is, it depends on the credibility. Like, if you have cover more databases, you'll have more credibility, or something like that.
Yes, so for that, so we are talking about the quality of systematic reviews, right? That which of the systematic review has a better quality, the one with the 10 or one with the 3 databases searched, right? So the more the databases that you search, the better, right? But we do have minimum number of criteria. So let me show you a checklist here. So we have this checklist, it's called AmStar checklist. So this checklist is used for rating the AmStar, and we will be discussing this checklist later on. But let me just quickly show it to you.
Ahmed, your screen is not shared, I think.
Can you see it now? It's a PDF file.
Yes, Ahmed.
So you would see here that we have several criteria here for rating the quality of a systematic review. And once we go to the number of databases that was searched, so it says, did the review authors use a comprehensive literature search strategy? For partial, yes. For yes, should also have this, right? So you can say yes, partial yes, or no. So if you have searched at least 2 databases relevant to research question, then it's a partial yes. partially yes to the question that did the authors use a comprehensive literature search strategy, right? Provided the keyword or search strategy and justified like publication restrictions. So if you do these three things, you have a partial yes to this criteria. And if you have done the following, for yes, search the reference list, bibliographies of included studies, search trial registries, which you did by using Cochrane, right? It had the ct.gov and ICTRP. Included consulted content experts in the field, wherever relevant searched for grey literature, and conducted search within 24 months of completion of the review. Then that means you have a full yes for using a comprehensive literature search strategy. So the number of databases that is recommended, minimum number of databases is at least 2. But the more the number of the databases, the better it is. Do we have any other question? And does it answer your question?
It is indeed. Thank you, Ahmed.
Do we have any more questions? If there are no further questions, I think we can take we can go for for practical training, for hands-on training ourselves, and all of the fellows, I would encourage them to use their own search strategies and search at least the PubMed and Cochrane, which are available for free, and you can get back and answer more questions or discuss the problems that you have faced. So it's around 10:16 a.m. here. Let's get back at 11, where all of you have at least searched your keywords in PubMed and Cochrane, and then we can get back to discuss problems that you face.
So is it a group work or just individual works?
Yep. So it would be team. It would be teamwork. So we have Bangladesh team, a Nepal team, Pakistan team, and Sri Lanka team.
Okay, we'll see you in 45 minutes.
Yeah. Is everyone back? I hope everyone has tried searching at least the PubMed and Cochrane database. And did you find any kind of problem while doing your search? Did you try different advanced search in the PubMed and also the main query box on the main page? And if you have found any difference in your results, so all of these things are worth considering when doing your PubMed search.
Actually, Nepal team, Prasansa, and I was still working on this search strategies and all the process that you have taught earlier. And we were also using EndNote, and we were there.
Yes, and did you get a chance to use Rayan as well?
Not yet. We were using PubMed, and we were following the process that you have taught,
Yeah.
and we were in the we were in the part where we use EndNote, and that's it. We could not do further. Yeah, we are still in the process. We're still practicing.
Yeah. So I think it's okay. You can keep practicing it, even afterwards. And what I can do is I can share a lot of YouTube tutorials as well. Short tutorials on use of Rayan software, short tutorials on use of EndNote for finding duplicates, deleting duplicates, or exporting results to EndNote from the databases. So I can share all of those. I also have written instructions saved as roughly saved as notes in a Word document. I can share that too. So that would be helpful. And I think this is also being recorded. You can see it afterwards.
Ahmad, we had a quick question. We were able to do a PubMed search and upload it to Rayan, but we had problems uploading it since we don't have EndNote. We were trying to do it as a CSV file, and Rayan was not able to upload the CSV format. But we were finally able to do it as a PubMed text file. Are we doing something wrong, or the CSV format is not uploadable to Rayan?
Yes. So once you go to the PubMed, to the Rayan software, it gives you a list of tutorials that what kind of formats it accepts from different databases. So for each of the database, the file format it accepts is a bit different. So that is why I had shown you how to work on the EndNote software. But let me just share I'll just share a document. If you want to work directly with the Rayan software, I will share a document with you detailing what kind of for each database. I'll just indicate the type of file it will accept. So that would become easy for you. So even on PubMed, I think they have. Let me see.
And from PubMed, are we saving it or are we sending it? I mean, there were two options: saving or sending. That wasn't clear to us.
Yeah. So from the PubMed, they have this PubMed format now. It's a newer format, and Rayan software accepts. So you have to save it. Just click on the save button. PubMed format file. It will save the file on your desktop.
Yeah, and that's what we did, and then finally it did accept it.
Yeah. But for the EndNote, you can use either the PubMed format. You can also use a summary text format. PubMed EndNote software will accept it.
we were not able to import the file to EndNote. So when I did click the import button, but still it wouldn't import all of these PubMed references. You're on mute.
Yes, can you see this EndNote screen?
Yes.
So once you go to File, Import, File, then you have to choose PubMed NLM here. If you are exporting results from PubMed, and then you choose the file and import it. This will help you to, download all, export all the results from the PubMed database. Let me just quickly demonstrate it to you as well. I'll just save all results on this page, PubMed format, create file, PubMed depression set. I'm just saving the document like this. File, import, choose PubMed depression set, choose PubMed NLM here, and import. Yes, so it should work fine. It imported 9 references which were on the page. So does this make any sense?
This is for importing into EndNote, but can you import directly from the PubMed file into Rayan?
Yeah, let me demonstrate that as well. So we have already saved it. Let's go to Rayan. And I'll just open up a new one. So once you go here, it will show you a lot of this PubMed guide. Right? So you can export search results from PubMed in the new PubMed format. So it will show you all of the formats that it accepts. So PubMed, new PubMed format, if you're downloading from Web of Science, uses CIW. And if you look at the supported format, it has EndNote, FMAN, PubMed Excel, so it accepts all of these. If I just go to the PubMed again, all results on this page, PubMed create, set one, downloaded, select files. So it should work.
Yeah, it did work. It did work for us as well.
Yeah.
But can you, one other question, when we did the include and exclude, if you wanted to change that, how do we get rid of it? Is there a way, like suppose we included something by mistake and we want to now, or the other way around?
Yeah. So just, click on that paddle again. So you can just change it.
Okay.
So any other problems that you had faced?
Ahmed, when we search, we didn't use RCT, but when we uploaded on Rayan, the RCT was highlighted. Why was that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, over here, a regression analysis is highlighted.
Yeah.
On your side. So why is it so?
Let me just check. Why is it highlighted? So it must have been highlighted because it's a keyword for exclusion. I'm not sure why it got excluded. So sometimes what happens is, when you are working on Rayan, so there are some more tools as well. So for example, you can just search it here. If you are including only randomized control trials, right? And you want to get rid of cross-sectional studies. So you can just search it here, cross-sectional or epidemiological or regression. You can search them here as well. So that may highlight the titles that have these keywords that you might want to exclude. Then there is another thing here that, keywords for include, you can write in trial here, right? And you have the survey and regression analysis here. So you can include these keywords. Let me just write cross-sectional. So what it does is when you have sifted through a number of articles, right? Then you know that, what is the trend for articles being excluded. What are the keywords that represent them, and what are the keywords that are in the articles that you want to include. So you can just include those keywords here. So if you click on trial, keywords for include trial, then you can easily get the articles that mention trial in their titles as well as abstracts. So this way you can quickly sift through a lot of articles in a short time. And for exclusion, we have added in a lot of keywords here as well. You can add as many as you want. So for example, we're only interested in randomized control trials, right? And we want to exclude the surveys. So just type in survey here, click on survey. It will highlight all of the articles that have the word survey in them. So you can just exclude them. Reason, wrong study design. Click on this. It's a cross-sectional survey. Exclude wrong study design. Exclude wrong study design. All of these are cross-sectional. So this is a very,
when we say wrong population, can we add something to it saying Latino? I mean, or we just have to say wrong population and that's it. So you're confused about whether we can add the label also. So let's say we want to get rid of Latinos and we say wrong population, but can we also say Latinos somewhere or we can't?
yes, you can write that in the table as well, and also include it as keywords here. But what I would suggest is, just use this generic terms like wrong population.
Okay, all right.
Because then you have to mention the reason for exclusion in a table, and also have to give the number of numbers that you have excluded. So the greater the number of these categories you have, the tougher it gets to make sense of the numbers and also fit it in a small box. So this is also another very good utility of this RAM software that I forgot to mention previously. And then you also get these topics. So let me just clear the keyword from here. So this is also really good. So if you click on these, you will also get yeah, so this will also kind of highlight the articles that have these topics. So in these reasons, keywords for include and exclude, these you have to add in manually. And these are the topics that Rayan, it will detect automatically. So both of these serve the same purpose, just for highlighting articles that have this, that are based on these particular topics. So this is another good utility of Rayon. And any other question regarding PubMed or Rayon or the use of EndNote?
Ahmed, I have a question that can you please demonstrate it again for me, the PubMed search when we are doing it for like 2 or 3 searches. So maybe before that, I want to share my screen and tell you that what is my main question. So can you see my Excel sheet here?
Yes, I can. Yes.
So what I did that as you said that I searched for these like number 1 search and found these much articles, and then number 2 search 3 4, and then I made the combination that 1 with 2, 1 with 3, 1 with 4, 1 with 5. So this is how I did it, and I was a bit confused at how to combine two. So as you said that for one strategy you have to do this, that right here, so that pens come along and there is a like this one. Can you see this 6th one? So I write the search in this way. But when I want to combine two, for instance, number 6 and number 8 with AND operator, then like I'm confused that I have to write the whole 8th again in the title, or we can just copy paste it with more parentheses. So what to do then? So what I did is I'll show you and then you can tell me if it is the right way or not. So it is number 12 which I searched. So what I did that I entered all the strategies from 1 perinatal and then AND operator, and then copy paste the number 8 like this. What do you think, if this is the right way or we have to do it in a different way? Am I clear, Ahmed?
You are on mute.
Yes. Is my screen visible, the PubMed page?
Yes.
So what I usually recommend is you can just click on these 3 dots, add query. So it will come into the query box, right? And then for the other, add with AND, and you will have this. And then you can just search it.
So Ahmed, it will be the same, like the whole text comes up. I did the same, but I am asking this, that if all like the first condition have 3 or 4 much brackets, and then the 6th condition have again 4 or 5 brackets.
Yeah.
So is it the right way, or we have to delete those brackets and then write the AND operator?
So I would recommend these 2 ways. Just do it, as PubMed suggests. Just add the query, or you can also do it like this. Just add the query number and combine it with AND. This is another way of doing it. So you would see that you're getting the same results either by using the numbers or by using these. And one thing about the brackets, it is really, really, really important, because what happens is, as we learned in our primary school mathematics even, that once you're writing up an equation, right, the terms that you add in a bracket that is taken as a unit. And are you following me? For instance, if you just write it like this,
Yes.
9 plus 2, right, plus 9 minus 2. So you would, so how we would solve it is like this. First, we will add 9 plus 2, then we will minus 9 plus 2 here, and then we will add them, right?
Yes.
So the PubMed algorithm, it searches the database, the PubMed database, in a similar way. So what it would do is all the keywords that are placed in one set of brackets, that is taken as a single unit. And then the other set of keywords that have their own set of open and closing brackets, they are considered as one unit. So PubMed will run the first unit and then the second unit and then combine them with AND, right? Are you following me?
Yes. Ahmed.
So if you get too confused with the use of brackets here, because as you see that once you add in, even if you add in a single keyword, a single search term, as PubMed is suggesting here, and then build the search strategy manually, right? There may be a chance of error there as well, that the PubMed would add multiple unnecessary brackets. And PubMed would also end up confusing a single keyword as one unit, a single keyword as another unit, instead of combining them as one unit. So for instance, if you have adolescent, TIAB, into one set of brackets, or teen into another set of brackets, then what PubMed is going to do is going to search adolescent separately, teen separately, and then combine them as OR, right?
Yes.
So you have to be very careful with the use of brackets here. And then another thing is that PubMed goes from left to right, right? So it would search the first set, for example, depressed or anxious. This is the first set, right? And let's see, suicide. So it would, this is set 1, this is set 2, and PubMed is going to go from from left to right. It will search for depression and anxious first, second suicide, and then combine with then combine them using AND. So what happens is, if you're searching just 5 or 6 keywords or maybe 10 keywords, then it is fine. PubMed Advanced Search Builder does not really make a lot of mistakes in that way in putting up brackets. But in your case, because you have 50 or 60 terms related to just countries, right? So that becomes a bit tough. You have to be really, really vigilant about the use of brackets. That PubMed has put in the brackets in a proper manner. And once you combine all of your search sets or keyword sets into this query box, just go through the keywords one by one and see that brackets have been put in a good way. There are no extra or accessory brackets, no unnecessary brackets. Otherwise, that would mess up your search strategy. So, our team, because we had quite a good experience with PubMed, several years of experience. So we don't really use this advanced box now. We don't really use these drop boxes or this enter a search term. What we do is we just make up own search strategy and type and copy paste it in. But as a beginner, that could lead to a number of mistakes. Maybe you can just forget adding in quotation marks. You can end up adding in wrong brackets. Let me just show it to you. So this is the search strategy that we were working with, right? Population specifier, intervention, outcomes, redesign. And all of these are combined using OR Boolean operator and Boolean operator between different concepts. And then we have these important fields: T for title, TIAB for title and abstract, TW for text word, and mesh for mesh index term. So we just do it like this. it has a huge chance of error because you can because in PubMed in a lot of instances, it is not going to tell you what is the mistake in your search strategy, right? So even if you make a small mistake, it might be ignored by PubMed, and you may get wrong results. But this is the way we do it, that we have one bracket open, bracket close, and then we put in all the terms inside related to one keyword. So this adolescent, this is the first set. Just type in adolescent as truncation mark, and then we type in square brackets DIAB, meaning that this term would be searched in title and abstract. So this is the first set. And PubMed would go from left to right. It would search for this set first, secondly this set, thirdly this set, and so on, and then combine them using the AND operator. So what I just do it like this, I make it manually. There are chances of errors, but you have to be, if you're extra vigilant, it's okay, and if you have years of experience in it. And then just search it like this.
Ahmed, do you suggest to search for one concept at a time and then later on combine those concepts, or can we do it at one go?
So it's entirely up to you. As I had mentioned yesterday, that if you search for a single concept first, then you would know that, let me just demonstrate it to you. If you search single concepts, then that's better because you will get results for single concepts. And you would know that, what kind of, which concept needs to be tweaked more. For example, if I just go here. So see, this is a bracket here, and I did not put a bracket here. So this was a mistake. Add to history. So now I just, I can just look at the numbers that if I search this adolescent terms, I get 958,000 results. If I search these terms, I get these many results. So this gives me an idea that, if I just work on this, if I'm getting a lot of numbers, a lot of search results, I can work on this aspect of the search strategy and maybe reduce a few terms from here that are giving me a lot of irrelevant results. Or maybe, I can try, because this is giving me so many results, inflated number of results, even in the final search strategy. What I would do is I will keep this as title abstract, and I will change this to title only, or maybe to abstract only. So this is a good idea to search it in this manner. That is what I would recommend, because it lets you tweak the search strategy in a better way. And then you can just add it in the query box, add with and just run the search like this. So this is another way, but be extra cautious of these brackets because a lot of mistakes are made here. And once you are done with doing these, combining these concepts individually, and you are okay with your search strategy, and you have tweaked it and finalized it. So just then do it manually. You can just copy paste the whole search strategy and search for it. But in Web of Science, it is recommended that you do. It is mandatory that you do it concept by concept and then combine the concepts with and term individually. And this for search strategies like what Ms. Huma has, I would recommend doing it manually because adding in country as a separate search term, she has over 50 or 60 countries to work with. So that would be a huge headache. So if you're extra cautious, you can do it manually as well.
Another question. Thank you so much for responding this one. I'm not sure this is a question or just a comment that when I search all the points and then combine all the 5, excluding the country's name, I got only 32 articles, and then I stopped there and thought that maybe I'm doing something wrong, because previously this is it is giving too much searches, and now it is giving only 32 searches. And if I'll include the countries or location aspect, then it will also exclude more. And I stopped there, and then I export the file in the Rayan software, and I'm not sure what happened. Maybe there were some duplicates, I think, or I'm not sure what happened, because I got only 10 entries in the Rayan software. So I'm a bit confused at
10 entries in.
is
So,
it
you had
fine, or I did something wrong?
No, you should be getting the same number of articles in Rayan as you had found in the PubMed. Did you export these results to EndNote first and then to Rayan?
No, I exported direct to Rayan, the PubMed file.
The number should be, oh, okay, I get it. So what you must have done is, while saving, just make sure that you select all of the results, not just all results.
Okay. Yes, I did on this page. So it means that it only saved the which were visible on the one page on. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. Fine. Thank you, Ahmed.
So even with experienced systematic reviewers, that the search process in different databases is a very iterative process. You have to do a lot of revisions. So I know this can get a bit confusing, but once you are running your own systematic reviews, we will look at each person's search strategy, and we will amend it, and we will help you revise the search strategy to come up with a final one. And then we also have some quality checks. So what we do is firstly, we finalize a strategy for each database, and then both of the fellows will run it. And in the end, we can compare the numbers if both of the fellows are getting the same numbers. If they're not getting the same numbers, then there must have been some kind of mistake made by one of the fellows, and we can recheck it. So we can have these quality checks as well, and we will help you with the search strategy too, so that we don't end up making any mistakes. And the important thing is, once when you are submitting your systematic review for publication in a journal, you have to present your search strategy. You have to copy paste your search strategies as a table, so reviewers can see it, right? So, and in most cases, it is either the Medline adapted one. It is a search strategy that is either adapted for Medline or PubMed. That is usually the case with most of the systematic reviews. So you just this is what you have to copy and paste, or you can copy paste this as well, because it mentions text, word, title, abstract, and here you just have these terms. So you can just copy paste these in your manuscript, because this is the search strategy that PubMed had read after you had copy pasted into it. But you always mention in your manuscript that you searched other databases as well. You mentioned the other databases, right? And you had an adapted search strategy for each database. So for instance, even with use of same keywords, you would have a different search strategy. You would have a slightly adapted strategy for Web of Science. For instance, you would search there not with title and abstract. Maybe you only search titles there. Maybe you only search topic there, in order to reduce the number or inflate the number of search results that you're getting. So just keep that in your mind, that if you're searching title and abstract or text word here, this thing might be different in Web of Science. It might be different in Cochrane, and it might be different in Scopus. But you don't really have to mention that. But do keep a record of those keywords that you search and the field limiters that you apply.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Do we have any more questions? So I'll just open up my presentation now and keep on practicing this. Keep on practicing these softwares. These are very important skills to have, and and one very important steps in your systematic review.
Sorry, Ahmed. Before moving forward, can you hear me? There is some echo, I think.
Yeah, I can hear you, but there is some echo. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Ahmed, when we are not doing it from university search, can we search for the Cochrane database? I found it difficult doing that. I looked at you doing the from university sign in, but when I was doing it independently, I found it difficult how to search on the Cochrane database. Hello.
So at what step did you find the problem? Was it in designing a search strategy? Was it exporting the results, or was it in searching?
It's in the searching, because I found that Cochrane library, then there are some other web pages with the name of Cochrane library, Cochrane trusted evidence. So there were too many websites, and I found it difficult at how to go with it.
So what you can do is you can just go to cochranelibrary.com, right? Cochrane Library. And you can either do a simple search, or you can go to advanced search. So I recommend going to advanced search. So you will come to the same same page that I had taken you to.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, I did it. Same. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So this is what you do, and in your case, because you have a very extensive search strategy, I would suggest us going to the search manager. This search manager also allows you to type in full concepts, right?
So population in one, and then intervention. Okay.
Yeah. And you just type in the concepts here and just add in the terms here, right? Yes. That gives you the mesh one. But you use the S here and just limit it to title abstract keyword. And in your case, because you have an extensive search strategy, I would not recommend adding in the countries here. So you can adapt your search strategy for Cochrane, because it will only allow you to have, a minimum set of these, right? So just use the search manager.
And also, I think when we are doing the search, we also came to know that, as I mentioned, that I only found 32 articles on the PubMed with only first 5 components, and then maybe I should not add region, because I can just see that manually.
Yeah, that's if you get a few hits on PubMed and other databases, then just shorten your search strategy, because we know that not a lot of work has been done on digital health interventions for depression, right? So we can assume a priori that we will not get a lot of hits, and we can reduce the number of keywords in your search strategy as well. But in our case, because we worked on prevalence of mental disorders, prevalence of common mental disorders during the perinatal period, and we have large-scale systematic reviews, then in that case, we do use a lot of limiters. So for instance, if you are searching on postpartum depression and psychosocial and psychological interventions for it, and we do get a lot of results from most of the from globally, right? And a lot of research has been done in higher income countries. So in that case, we always add country specific keywords.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ahmed, are we going to continue, or are we still doing our own stuff?
Yeah, we're going to continue.
We're going to continue now.
So now that we have worked on the databases, we know how to export. There is some echo going on. Does someone have their mic on? Could you please switch off your mic so we don't have any echo? Yeah, so now we are going to continue with publication and reporting bias. As we had talked about it earlier on, that why can't we just choose a few high impact journals to search from? Why can't we just limit our search to journals like JAMA, Lancet, considering that they only publish high impact research papers and excellent quality research papers? So this is because we want to avoid publication and reporting bias. In systematic reviews, we try to be inclusive of as much research as possible, right? Even if it's high quality or low quality, we are going to judge it later on, not the journals or the editors who accepted that article. And this is because this is due to a lot of reasons that are, and those reasons come under the umbrella of these two terms, publication bias and the reporting bias. And when you are making policy recommendations based on your systematic review, then assessment of this publication bias and reporting bias is very important. If you find a bit of evidence that there is publication bias when you are reporting your results in your systematic review, then automatically your evidence gets downgraded. So for instance, if I'm working on, let's say, CBT for depression, and I find that using statistical methods, I find that there are very few articles that report null findings or negative findings. So we may assume that editors of journals must have rejected papers of negative findings or papers of null findings and accepted only papers from papers with the positive findings that showed that these interventions are effective. So that comes under publication bias, and if we find such evidence in the evidence that we have included, then we have to downgrade the recommendation for that particular treatment or that for a particular therapy. So reporting biases, these arise when the dissemination of research findings is influenced by the nature and direction of results. We know from research that high quality research journals, they focus on public health relevant or positive results more. And more recently, now we are seeing that that there is a mushroom growth of journals that are beginning to accept papers with null findings or papers with negative findings, and they mention it in their introduction. So a few of these research publications are BMC Research Notes, F1000 Research. So all of these are open access. They accept papers with null findings or negative findings, but they do not really have an impact factor. Both of these are although PubMed indexed, but they have no impact factor. So there is a trend that high quality journals accept papers with positive findings only, and editors seem to be more biased towards those type of articles. And then there is a concept of novelty as well. A lot of editors would say that this study has been published very frequently in our journal, and we will just not accept it. And then you will find that a lot of research is done in Spanish-speaking countries or Portuguese or French-speaking countries, and they have their own journals in their regions. For instance, there's a whole database of journals that publishes in Spanish language only from Latin America, and if we just focus on databases or journals with high impact factors, we may just be including the English language papers and just exclude that evidence in the very beginning. And so it's very important that the evidence or systematic reviews is not judged based on the impact factor or the suitability of an article or the significance of results. We need to include non-significant results as well, which are as important as studies with statistically significant results. Then I have a table of types of reporting biases. So firstly, we have the publication bias. So publication bias, it depends on the nature and direction of the results, as we talked about earlier on, that papers with null findings, negative findings end up not getting published in high quality journals. Then there is time lag bias, in which the nature and direction of results, it can dictate the rapid or delayed publication of research findings. For instance, if you have a paper on CBT intervention, a randomized controlled trial, a huge randomized controlled trial, and it gets and you have the funds for the Lancet or for some other journal that can allow for rapid peer review. You can get rapid publication. If you have poor results, it may lead to desk rejections, a lot of desk rejections, and you may end up with a delayed publication. Then there is a duplicate publication bias. This duplicate publication bias can arise from a number of situations. For instance, if an article was published in the Spanish language, a lot of journals, they accept their English versions to be published again. For instance, and also you see this in a lot of journals that are published in the Spanish language, in the Persian language as well. There are a lot of international journals that allow that if your paper has been published in a local journal and you would like it to be seen on an international platform, you can do it with the consent of the editor. Then there is a location bias. So the reason we search multiple databases is because of this location bias. So as I previously mentioned, that Spanish language articles are not really included in PubMed. So you would not have ease of access, or the journal does not have the level of indexing, depending on the nature, direction of results, nature of language as well. So this comes under location bias, and that is the reason we choose a lot of regional databases to search from. Then there is the citation bias, in which the research findings may not be cited depending on the nature and direction of results. So we should not really be focused on the impact factor or number of citations as a quality indicator of paper to be included in systematic review. Then there is language bias, as we talked about earlier on. Then there is outcome reporting bias. So this is a very important category of reporting bias that we see in systematic reviews. So what happens is, let's say there was a randomized controlled trial that focused on cognitive behavioral therapy for parental depression and anxiety. So what happened was, they used hospital anxiety and depression scale as for assessing symptoms of anxiety and depression. And once they do their analysis, they find that anxiety brings about significant results, and depression subscale brings about non-significant results. So they would just omit reporting of depression because it's non-significant, and they would only report the anxiety outcome because it was more significant. So we have to consider all of these reporting biases while doing our working on our systematic review. So do comprehensive search for studies, and to counter publication bias, for instance, if you want to look at studies that had null findings but and never got published, you can just go to the prospective trial registries. So ct.gov is a good website, ICTRP is a good website, and you can see, you can just use your search terms there and look at the trials that had been registered there. So for instance, if a trial was registered in 2014 and it shows the completion date on 2017 and it's still not getting published, then there may be a reason for it. For instance, it's getting test rejections, or maybe it had null findings or negative findings and it has never been reported. So the good thing here, good practice here would be to just look at the email of the corresponding author or the senior author and email them to get their results. So this sort of publication would come under the category of grey literature.
Ahmed, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
This prospective trial registration, is this, so anytime somebody is doing any kind of an intervention trial, they have to register it somewhere or the other? Is that the requirement now?
Yes, that is a requirement, but it depends on the journal. So a lot of high quality journals, they require that your trial be prospectively registered. This is done because if you don't really register your trial prospectively and you do it in a retrospective manner, you would have a lot of window to do. Thank you afterwards. For instance, you can change your data analysis methods. You can change your primary time point. You can change your time points. For instance, your time point was 6 months, but you're getting significant results in 3 months, and you end up reporting that. So that becomes under the category of reporting bias.
And where do you register it? Is there a standard repository, or are there several repositories where you can register it?
Yeah. So there are several repositories for it. So there is ct.gov, there is ICTRP, then WHO has its own trial registry now. You can register there as well. And you must have seen that while searching Cochrane, it searches through ct.gov and ICTRP as well. So you end up seeing a lot of protocols there that never got published in a journal just because of their findings. And then there is another publication bias that a lot of authors or researchers, when they end up presenting their papers as an oral presentation or as a poster presentation, never bother to publish them in a peer-reviewed publication. So this way, a lot of scientific evidence is again wasted. And once you find those posters or conference abstracts, it is a good practice to email those authors and ask them send them a proforma, ask them to fill that proforma with necessary statistics and whatever information that you need to get, because a poster abstract or conference abstract would not necessarily have all of the information that you need to include in your systematic review. But again, you can always include an exclusion criteria that for this systematic review, we did not consider posters or conference abstracts because they do not present all of the information required for a systematic review. But the best practices is to email the author and ask them for all of the details so you can include it in your analysis. And then another good practice is always email your colleagues who work in your field. Get in touch with subject experts. If you're working on pharmacological studies, then it's good to get in touch with pharmaceutical companies as well and ask them that if they have any data corresponding to this particular intervention in this disease. These are my inclusion criteria, and these are my papers. If you have any data that is unpublished, please do let me know, and you can send them the proforma to fill in. Then So this also talks about the publication bias and a lot of bias, that smaller studies do not end up getting published, and larger studies do get published. And but it is important that you add in that once you do a meta-analysis or a systematic review, you include all of those studies. The only drawback here is that the smaller studies with smaller sample size, they will give you a less precise estimate of effect size. So the confidence interval that you're going to get around your mean pool size would be very wide. You would get an imprecise estimate. And for larger studies, you will get a precise estimate. But once you combine them, by calculating a weighted average, then even you would note that even smaller studies make a difference in your meta-analysis. So this is about the publication bias. We studied it in. I tried to cover almost all of the types of reporting biases or publication biases that we see, but it also has another important component, which is statistical appraisal of this publication bias. So that is the component that we will study tomorrow in the meta-analysis class. We will cover how to make the funnel plots and how to appraise them, how to interpret them. And we will also work on a lot of statistical techniques, such as Egger's regression statistic, to detect publication bias using a statistical test, and then how to adjust for it using Dual and Tweedy's trim and fill method. So do we have any questions related to publication bias?
So not actually relating to publication bias, but then I'm just thinking that this systematic review itself is like a really exhausting job, because if we are planning to include great literature and others, conference presentations as such, I'm just guessing it would take quite a lot of time to get this review done. So I'm just wondering, I mean, is everything of those that you just mentioned needs to be done in our PhD program?
So what I'm talking about is, about posters and conference abstracts. So that is best practice, right? So organizations such as Cochrane and Campbell, they expect you to do it. And you would, when you see their reviews, those people who register their protocols there, they do all of these steps. But once you are doing your PhD and you're not really interested in Cochrane, then you can forego this step and you can mention it in your protocol, Prospero protocol exclusion criteria, that we excluded all of the posters and conference abstracts and letter to editors and short reports because they do not really have all of the information needed for a systematic review. Mostly, we as a team do this as well. Mostly, we don't really include posters or conference abstracts because we only get 3 or 4 months, or maybe 2 or 3 months for completing a large-scale systematic review. For Cochrane, the commitment that authors make with Cochrane, that really takes a toll on them, because they are very stringent about the criteria, and I've seen people spending 1 full year just for completion of one Cochrane protocol, one Cochrane systematic review and meta-analysis, because they are just too extensive and too detailed and too stringent about all of the criteria that I have just mentioned.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the risk of bias appraisal. So this is also an important component of a systematic review, where you try to appraise the risk of bias in studies or the quality of studies. Since most of us are doing systematic reviews of interventions, so I have only included included methods here that focus on appraisal of risk of bias in randomized control trial designs. So why is it so important to certain risk of bias in randomized control trials when you're including them in your Cochrane review or systematic review? So the tool that we mostly use for this is the Cochrane risk of bias tool. That is one of the most frequently used tool globally, which was made popular by the Cochrane collaboration themselves. And it is just an assessment to make sure that the studies that we include in our paper are valid enough. And if they're not valid enough, then they will overestimate or underestimate the true intervention effect. So, and when you're presenting your results, you have to make sure that you appraise this, you appraise the biases in those articles, and then comment on your pooled effect size. That because let's say because we included a majority of studies with a high risk of bias, so we are not really sure if it is the true intervention effect. It may have been overestimated, it may have been underestimated, because the trials that we include in our systematic review, all of them or majority of them had very poor study design. So the most frequently used tool is the Cochrane risk of bias tool. It assesses a randomized control trial based on these 6 matrices. So it looks for risk of bias in the following matrices in the study design of an RCT. So for instance, you have to look if sequence generation has been done appropriately, if allocation concealment has been done appropriately, if blinding and part of participants and personnel have been done appropriately, if the outcome assessors had been blinded, if you had any incomplete outcome data.
Can you explain what sequence generation?
Yes, I have the next. I have it in the next slide. So we'll go all through all of these criteria, all of these matrices in detail. Then there is selective outcome reporting and other biases. So other biases would include if the trial was registered prospectively or not, if the power calculations have been done, statistical power is good enough. So all of these come under this other biases domain. So a bias is a systematic error in most appropriate definitive terms, or deviation from the truth in results or references. So if you have a high risk of bias, you would know that you're deviating from the true effect size. Either you are underestimating it or either you are overestimating it. And biases can vary in magnitude. Some are small, some are substantial. And this has been shown in research upon research papers that randomized controlled trials that are published and have a risk of bias in even in one domain of Cochrane risk of bias tool, they end up overestimating or underestimating the true intervention effect. So it has been shown empirically as well. But a particular source of bias may vary in direction. It may be a bias due to a particular design flaw, as we had talked about it earlier. That may be due to lack of randomization or lack of allocation concealment, and it may lead to underestimation or overestimation in that study. And it is usually impossible to know to what extent biases affect the results of a particular study, right? But there is evidence that these do lead to a biased effect size. But we cannot be sure for a particular set of papers that if it is overestimating the effect or it is underestimating the effect. But nowadays we do have some advanced analytical tools, such as use of meta-regression, in which if you have a set of randomized controlled trials and they have varied risk of biases. For instance, half of the RCTs have no risk of bias, half of them have some risk of bias, and rest of them have, and 1/3, let's say 1/3 has a high risk of bias. So you can run a sort of a regression analysis and see that if the presence of risk of bias is overestimating the intervention effect or underestimating the intervention effect. But you can only do if you have a mix of papers, a mix of RCTs that have varied risk of biases. If all of your RCTs or majority of your RCTs have a high risk of bias, you cannot truly tell, even with meta-regression or regression analysis, about the kind of bias it presents. If it's either underestimating the true intervention effect or if it's overestimating the true intervention effect. So Cochrane risk of bias Cochrane risk of bias tool. Once you have applied it, it categorizes your RCTs into 3 categories. Either they would have a low risk of bias, meaning that plausible bias is unlikely to seriously alter the results. Either it's unclear, that plausible bias that raises some doubts about the results, or either it's high, a plausible bias that seriously weakens confidence in the results. So at this point, when you're rating a particular risk of bias matrix, you have to see that, for instance, take example of a study that mentions that they have done allocation concealment, but they don't really mention how they had ensured a proper allocation concealment. So we would always rate it as unclear. So Cochrane mentions that that for RCTs to be rated as low, you have to make sure that they mention the type of method that they have used for sequence generation, for allocation concealment, for blinding. If they just mention that randomization was done, then it's unclear. They have to mention their method. And if they say that they mention their method and they mention that an inappropriate method for randomization or allocation concealment, then you rate it as high, because that sort of method is going to weaken the confidence in your results. So let's take on these domains of risk of bias tool one by one. Let's go to the sequence generation. So sequence generation is just like the full term would be random sequence generation or randomization. So once you are appraising a research paper across this matrix, sequence generation, you have to see if randomization was done. Random number table, or it was done using a flip of coin, or it was done by using computer software. But it would be rated as high. So these are just a few examples. There might be more examples for it, and it might be rated high if the authors or the study designers, they divided the participants into control group and experimental group based on date of birth or date of admission to the hospital or hospital record numbers. So these would be rated as having high risk of bias. And if they divided their participants into control and experimental group, intervention group, using a random number table, software, using computer software or flip of a, then the randomization has a low risk of bias. And if they just mention that the participants were randomized into experimental intervention group and control group, then we are and they do not necessarily mention the method that was used for this, then we rate it here. Do we have any questions so far? Is it making any sense?
I have a quick question that this is something we can only ascertain if you read the full text of the paper. So in terms of our inclusion criteria for our systematic review, this would only come at a later stage, right?
Yeah. So this stage comes when you have finalized the set of articles that you're including in your systematic review. And then you start with the synthesis of the results, you start with risk of bias, and you start with extraction of quantitative data. So it is that stage it comes to. So for when you are
one follow-up question, would you then eliminate it if let's say it was a high bias? You eliminate it, or would you keep it in your study in terms of your meta-analysis?
So in our meta-analysis, we keep all of these studies. But what we do is we then subcategorize the evidence into the studies into having low risk of bias and having high risk of bias. And then we can compare by running a subgroup analysis. We can compare that, what is the intervention effect in studies with low risk of bias and what is the intervention effect in studies with high risk of bias. And sometimes you would see that, there is no difference between the two. Even that happens. Or most of the times it may show that, that studies with low risk of bias have low effect size. So it would mean that, having a high risk of bias is overestimating your effect. But in recent review, we found that, studies with a low risk of bias have higher effect size. So we got to know that that the other group, which had a high risk of bias, was actually underestimating the intervention effect. So you cannot truly tell until you have done your subgroup analysis or meta-regression analysis for it. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to the next slide then. The next is the allocation concealment. So in this one, you are trying to conceal the treatment that the study participants are being given. So they should not know, who has been randomized to a control group and who has been randomized to an intervention group, which of the group is receiving the placebo drug or treatment as usual, which of the group is receiving the other treatment. And allocation concealment is done for the intervention recipients as well as the study investigators. Even they should not know that when they are studying the groups, they should not know who has been allocated to the experimental group or the control group. So allocation concealment is rated as having low risk of bias when it is centrally allocated, right? So central allocation can be done by, let's see, a statistician who is independent, an independent statistician who is not involved in the study design, who's not involved in running of the trial, who's not involved in the analysis, and he's not a stakeholder. So it's an independent organization, an independent statistician who does it. And then you do, and once you give the news of the allocation to the doctors and to the patient, you do it in opaque sealed envelopes. So doctors, who are involved in running the trial, they do not really see who is in the intervention group or in the control group. So this has to be done in opaque sealed envelopes. If the studies mention that it was done in sealed envelopes, but they do not really mention opaque, then that raises some question that this was this allocation concealment step had a high risk of bias. So if they allocate patients to experimental control group based on their date of birth, admission date, or they give them envelopes without safeguards, like give them transparent envelopes, then allocation concealment has a high risk of bias here. Because if we do this, if we send them transparent envelopes, or just tell them that you are in the control group and you're in the intervention group, or we know that people with odd dates for admission are in the control group, and those with even dates of admission are in the intervention group, then we have a high chance of rating then the doctors involved or the psychologists involved or the field team involved in rating the depressive or anxiety symptoms or any other outcome may rate, subconsciously rate, rate intervention recipients as having good outcomes, and control groups as having bad outcome. It can arise subconsciously, and there can be there may even be some chance of some malicious intentions, that the trial investigator, he does not really ensure allocation concealment and tells investigators that just rate those in intervention group as good outcome just to show that his intervention is working. So that happens as well. Then blinding.
Ahmed,
Yes.
Ahmed, I just had a question about this. As you mentioned, because in our cities, you have too much to write in the papers, and I have worked in trials, and I don't think we have mentioned this opaque sealed envelopes. I think we have just mentioned sealed envelopes. So, but we have used the opaque sealed envelope.
Yeah.
So, what you are saying is that we have to confirm it with the author, or just go what he has written.
So you can confirm this with the author as well, but we rarely do so. If they just mention sealed envelopes, I would rate it as unclear. That is, they say sealed envelope, I don't know if it's transparent or if it is opaque. Because doing a systematic review and meta-analysis is about what is being reported in the paper, right? We're not going to the field to to assess if they had used opaque envelopes or not. But you can always contact the authors. But in most of the instances, it's just not possible. If you are doing a large-scale systematic review, then contacting each author is just not feasible. Then the blinding of assessors, participants, and personnel. So this matrix, although it is very important for pharmacological studies, we don't usually rate it for interventions, for global mental health interventions, because blinding assessors, participants, personnel is really difficult in global mental health research. If an assessor is if a field person or field personnel are giving CBT to a group, they would know it's CBT, right? Because it's that obvious. And if they are giving psychoeducation, they know that it's psychoeducation because it is obvious. So even the participants would know it, even the assessors would know it, even the personnel would know it. So we do not really rate this matrix, and we just write low risk of bias or high risk of bias and exclude it from including in the overall evidence. But blinding is particularly easy in pharmacological trials because you can't really see, because the placebo drugs and the experimental drugs are usually designed in a similar design. So blinding is very easy in pharmacological trials. So this is one of the limitations of this Cochrane risk of bias tool or any other tool, because not all of this can be translated into psychotherapeutic trials of psychotherapeutic interventions. Then the next matrix is incomplete outcome data. So this is also rated as low.
I just had a quick question with regard to the blinding. Since blinding is not possible in psychological interventions, does that affect the quality of the assessment of the intervention and the intervention effect? Since one may always argue that there was an impact because that the intervention group is not blinded. I'm just curious as to how is that addressed.
So one point I would like to mention here is that you can do two things here. Either you can divide it into two matrices, just write blinding of outcome assessors as a separate metrics and mention that because blinding outcome assessors is easy. They are just going in the field for assessment, for assessing outcome. They are just going in the field to apply HAD, hospital anxiety or depression scale. They are just in the field to apply PHQ-9, right? They don't really know what kind of intervention the women are receiving, unless they are the ones who are also giving the intervention. So just divide it into two matrices, rate outcome assessors as separate, and you can ignore blinding of participants and personnel. But again, not blinding participants and personnel is a risk of bias in the study designs of psychotherapeutic trials, but we choose to ignore it when we are rating it for the sake of systematic reviews, because it's just not possible. Then coming on to the next metrics, incomplete outcome data. So it is also rated as low, high, or unclear. Low would be rated when there is no missing outcome data in the study designs, in the results. When you see results, they just mention that all of the part intervention recipients and control group came for baseline interviews, they came for the intervention, and then they also came for the follow-ups. So none of them missed it. But this is rarely the case. If you see that there is some sort of missing data in reported in the paper, so you would see there that if the cutoff that we use is 20%. If less than 20% of the participants were missed at the follow-up or at the primary time point, then we rate it as low. But if more than 20% of them were did not really come for the outcome assessment, then we rate it as having as high risk of bias. Another thing is that with innovations in statistical methods, now we have a lot of imputation methods. So we have a lot of statistical techniques such as MCAR, which can be done through by using SPSS. Then we have structural equation modeling programs such as M+, which give you a lot of techniques, statistical techniques, such as latent growth curve models, which are not very sensitive to missing data. So we see that what kind of statistical techniques have been used here, and if they have used appropriate imputation methods. And if they have used any imputation methods, what kind of method was used? Was it regression analysis, or did they just replace the missing values with mean? Did they replace the missing values with the median? So we look at these kind of these things here, that what kind of method was used for imputation of missing data. And if none of these, if no imputation method has been employed, then you see balance across groups. So for example, you see that 10% of the people, or let's say 20% of people, were missing in the intervention group, and 10% of the people were missing in the control group. So the good practice in randomized control trials is that they compare characteristics of people missing. So if you see that the age of missing people in the intervention group did not differ from the people who were present from the intervention group, and also across the groups between control and between intervention group, and we see that there is no much difference in their let's say in their age, gender, and other such characteristics. If there's no difference, we can rate it as low. And we can also see that a lot good practice in randomized control trials is that authors mention reasons that 3 of the people did not come because they changed their cities, 4 of the people did not come because they did not have permission from their let's say from their families to attend the complete the trial. So if the authors have mentioned these kind of reasons, and you note that these reasons are okay, they are not very they do not really threat the external validity of these results, you would rate it as low. But if they mention reasons such as they did not really feel that they were having an improvement, or they did not really feel that they felt that they were having a lot of adverse effects. Things like reasons like this, reasons like so these reasons would decrease the effectiveness of results if those people were to stay in the trial. So if we feel it that way, then we rate the risk of bias as high, that incomplete outcome data is presenting high risk of bias, because exclusion of these participants from the intervention or control group led to underestimation or overestimation of the effect size. And if they mention as treated analysis, so this is a very important term. You have to distinguish between intent to treat analysis and as treated analysis. So if the authors mention that they just ignored the people, the incomplete outcome data, and did as treated analysis, then that is also rated as having high risk of bias. Then comes the selective outcome reporting, also rated as low or high. So to rate it as having low risk of bias, you need to see that that the protocol or the trial has been registered, and all of the outcomes have been listed in that protocol or trial registry, and all of those outcomes have now been analyzed and reported in the full paper. If that is the case, then you rate it as low. But sometimes you find that no protocol has been published. That was the case about 10 years ago when publishing a protocol, a priori registry of trials, or publishing a protocol was not very important at that time. But you see that even if there is no protocol, the outcome reporting is sufficient. If they have used hospital anxiety and depression scale, then they mention anxiety and depression as well. They don't omit anxiety and just report depression, right? So if they report both of these subscales, then we report it as having low risk of bias. And then high risk of bias, where do we see high risk of bias? So if they only mention significant outcomes, only significant subscales, and sometimes what happens is that in trials, we usually end up employing two scales for one for every person, for every intervention received. Sorry. So maybe we used PHQ-9 as well as HADS. And HADS gives significant results while PHQ-9 gives non-significant results. We omit PHQ-9 and we just report HADS. So even in that case, it's a high risk of bias. And then what a lot of authors do is they do not really present the results for all of the participants. What they would do is they would present, for example, males and females separately, old age group separately, young age group separately, just so they can hack the p-values, just so they can get significant p-values. If they were reporting all of the participants as a single set, they would have yielded non-significant results. So this also leads to high selective outcome reporting. Then comes the last slide of this Cochrane risk of bias tool. The last matrix is other biases. So you check here that if power analysis have been reported, that the authors report that that statistical power was good enough for conduct of this review. You see that if there has been any other threats to validity of RCTs, for instance, some of the trials may have been stopped prematurely. So let's say that the protocol says that primary time point is 6 months, but they stopped it at 3 months just because they were getting significant results. So this is a high risk of bias. And in many cases, the data I should not say many cases, but sometimes the data may also be fraudulent. And if you come across such fraudulent data just by reading the paper, for instance, the percentages do not match, frequencies do not match, and you see that p-value has been written as significant, but it does not really match the mean differences or effect size. So in that case, the data most likely is going to be fraudulent, and you have to mention it as high risk of bias. Or maybe you receive some kind of news, published news that that this research study was published recently, and they mentioned that they had done randomization using computer software, but they did not really use it. You saw it in the newspaper, you saw it in any blog or web page or the university website, then that is fraudulent data as well, and you have to mention it as having high risk of bias. So this ends our assessment of risk of bias in RCTs. I know that I had done it in a very speedy manner, but because of the lack of time. But if you have any questions so far, please let me know. If you have any confusions, we can discuss it and try to remove all of the confusions before we move forward. So do we have any questions so far?
Just a clarification, all about this biases that we've talked about. Is this while screening the articles, or is it important to mention in our interpretation, or what significance does it have in terms of systematic review?
So in policy, in research policy making, once you do a systematic review, in the end, you have to give a recommendation for it, right? So for instance, you worked on CBT-based interventions for perinatal depression. So what use is and you show that, CBT is highly effective in improving perinatal depression, right? And you give this recommendation. But you don't really mention that all of the data that was included in your, all of the studies that were included in your systematic review, or a majority of the studies that were included in your systematic review, had a high risk of bias, right? Then, if they had a high risk of bias, you have to mention it. Although we show that CBT is highly effective, but most of the studies included in our evidence had a high risk of bias. So we cannot truly say that this is the true estimate of the intervention effect. And future research, when good quality randomized controlled trials start to take place, then we can say for sure that that the intervention effect is going to change. Or if we give a policy recommendation that CBT is highly effective, but we have to say that data is based on this data is based on poor quality studies. So please swallow this this recommendation with a grain of salt, right? Don't put 100% confidence in it that CBT is highly effective, just because the data is based on poor quality studies or studies having high risk of bias. So we have a whole exercise on it. We do grade profiling method for recommendations. And if we see that, so we grade the evidence from high, moderate, low to very low. So if the evidence is based on studies, majority of the studies have high risk of bias, then the recommendation is downgraded from high to moderate. Or it may even be, or if all of the studies have a high risk of bias, it may be downgraded by 2 levels from high to low. So you say that we have shown CBT is highly effective, but the certainty of evidence is low. And having a low certainty of evidence means that the intervention effect is more likely to change with future research as more and more good quality trials come in. So does this make sense?
Perfectly, thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Because next you have to do a group activity on it. I'm going to give you a paper, and you have to rate the risk of bias in that paper. And we only have 20 minutes left. So you can either do it now, or you can do it afterwards and send it to me via email, or we can discuss it tomorrow as first item on the agenda. So let's move further. So a good practice for systematic reviews. So a systematic review should have PICO formatted question. I think I received some message. Yes, so it should have a PICO research question. Review methods were established a priori. You need to explain the selection of the study designs. You need to have a comprehensive literature search strategy. You have to perform, you have to exclude duplicates. You have to inform if there is any potential source of conflict of interest. You have to mention your sources of funding for the studies. You have to mention risk of bias in individual studies. You have to describe the included studies in adequate detail. You have to provide a list of excluded studies. We don't really do it for systematic reviews, but we do it for Cochrane reviews only. We have to perform data extraction in duplicate. So make sure that both of the fellows do data extraction in duplicate, and then they compare their data extraction across the variables and see if any mistake has been made by one of the fellows, and then rectify it either by discussing among themselves or by discussing with the senior author. That this is where they are having a contradiction. So the senior author can help you solve it. You have to discuss heterogeneity in the paper. So this heterogeneity, we will discuss about it in detail tomorrow. We'll talk about statistical heterogeneity as well as the clinical heterogeneity that can present among studies in systematic reviews. You have to assess the potential impact of risk of bias. You have to have appropriate methods for statistical analysis. You have to account for risk of bias in individual studies and interpreting. So like I was mentioning, and you need to have an adequate investigation of publication bias. So the publication bias or reporting bias that we had studied earlier on. So this is the end of our module 2. We have just one group activity left. So it's entirely up to you if you would like to do it now or if you would like to email me afterwards. And tomorrow we will start with module 3, and we will also start as a first item on agenda with the discussion of the group activity. Do all of you have access to the PebblePad platform?
Yes.
So the PebblePad platform has this group activity mentioned as GA2. So it has a Word document called GA2 risk of bias, where you have to mention the rating for each matrix of matrix of the Cochrane risk of bias tool, and you have to give an explanation for it. That why did you do it? Why did you rate this random sequence generation as having low risk? And you will have a PDF file that has a paper linked to it. That is a paper that you have to read and that you have to read. Let me just take you through that paper once. Yes, so this is that paper. This paper, research paper, is on effects of an interpersonal psychotherapy-oriented postnatal program for Chinese first-time mothers. So it was done by Gao et al. And published in 2014. And you have to go through the whole article and rate its risk of bias. The document for it is named as GA2 risk of bias. Let me take you to it. So this is how it looks like. Just rate the risk of bias as low, unclear, or high, and then give an explanation for it. For instance, if it was low, just mention that the authors used computer. So this is how this needs to be done. And tomorrow we can have presentation from the teams and discuss about it in detail. So we have an idea that all the fellows have a good understanding for rating risk of bias, because this is a really, really important part of the systematic reviews. Any questions so far?
Just to be clear, so this is going to be done on our own, and we will we'll discuss the results tomorrow, correct?
Yes, that is correct, because we only have 15 minutes left for workshop, and this exercise might take half an hour, because most of the fellows are doing it for the very first time.
Okay.
Ahmed, can you please save your PowerPoint slides to the Teams, or are they available on the Pebble Pad? So I found only module 1. Hello.
Yes, I'm going to upload these PowerPoint presentation on the Teams file section, because I don't think PebblePad has it.
I could access it from PebblePad actually.
Yeah, so I'll still upload it on Teams, because I may have changed a few slides. Let me just post the latest version of this PowerPoint on the on this Teams software. It's being uploaded, and you should be able to access it. Yeah, you should be able to access it now.
Also, I'm not sure if the assignments you are mentioning are available on the Pebble Pad, because I couldn't find this risk bias assignment, and but it is available on Teams.
Let me upload it on Teams as well. I think PebblePad has a folder called group activity. So that folder must have it. But let me just upload it here as well, so all of you can access it easily.
So Huma, it's in Module 2 overview. So if you scroll it down in PebblePad, there is this hyperlink with the name key document under group activity 2. So that's how I accessed it, since I don't have Teams chat box access.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I could find. I was searching in the assignment bar. Okay, thank you.
So I have this. I have uploaded this folder in Teams as well, so you can easily access the risk of bias group activity. So please make sure that everyone does it. So we have, by discussion, we'll have a better understanding of rating risk of bias in studies, because this is a really, really important component of systematic reviews. So do we have any more questions? We still have 10 minutes, and it would be good to have more questions, or if someone has any other confusion that we can sort out.
Ahmed, when we are doing this risk of bias, so for example, just looking at the allocation concealment or the random sequence generation. So there are 2 or 3 aspects. For instance, computer generated or the sealed envelopes. So do we need to assess all these and then this is low risk of bias, or if one is there and the second one is not there, then um, it's unclear? What should we say it?
So for random sequence generation, we are only looking at the procedure that was conducted to randomize intervention recipients into experimental or the control group, right? So in that case, just look at the procedure for randomization. If it was done using a computer software, if it was done using a flip of coin, if just one of these methods is mentioned, then that's what you need. We just need one method, one method for ensuring good randomization. For allocation concealment, again, just one method. Either they use opaque envelopes, or they use the method of central allocation by using some other independent statistical team or pharmacy team.
Okay, thank you.
So if there are no more questions, should we call it a day?
So are we supposed to send this to your email, or should we present it tomorrow?
Sorry, could you please say it again?
I'm just wondering about this assignment that you just given. Should we send it to you, or should we discuss it tomorrow?
You can do either. You can present it tomorrow. If you want to, initiate a discussion, I think that would be a better thing.
One last question, Ahmed. Did you upload your PowerPoint slides from today? That would be very helpful if you have done it, or if you haven't, then could you please do it?
Yes, I have done it now. You can access it.
Where is it in assignments?
It's uploaded in the file section. Just go to the screens.
Yeah.
And
which
you
folder
go
is
to the file.
Go to the file.
And you have the PowerPoint module 2 and 3 -aw.ppt.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the risk of bias group activity has its own folder.
Okay, fine.
Any more questions so far? Okay, then let's call it a day, and we can meet tomorrow for the last module of our systematic approach. So then, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you, Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ahmed. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
What?